Hey everyone, welcome back to another Kitecast episode. For today's podcast, we're talking about 2025, specifically our 12 predictions for the coming year. Now, seeking insights and recommendations from industry experts, I turned to two of my friends, Alexandre Blanc and Evgeniy Kharam. They're joining me. Thanks, guys. Looking forward to the conversation.
Hello, thank you for having us. Really happy to join you again.
Same here.
Now,
Always
this
happy to be
is
on the cast.
third time's always the charm, I guess. So this is the third time we've done our forecast report, and the other two have been well received in the marketplace. And we get a lot of backlinks at the end of the year from various posts and articles that are written on them. And some of the media actually end up talking to us. Hopefully that's the case again this year. And we do have some interesting items in the forecast. Evgeniy, I'll let you guys introduce yourselves, but I'll do a quick intro. Cybersecurity architect, podcaster, author, consultant, you name it, he's done it. His book, Architecting Success, was just published a few months ago. In fact, he and I did a podcast on it, so you want to check that conversation out on the Kitecast channel. Alexandre also heralds from the North. This is an all-Canadian podcast, I think, other than myself. So you'll have to bear with me and my darn lower 48 accent. But Alexandre, he has held an advisory role and consulting role in various security validations. He consults with various organizations on security and compliance, runs his own firm. So with that, I'll be quiet. Anything you guys want to add before we jump into some of the 12 predictions? Obviously, we can't cover all of them. We'll cover the ones we think are most salient.
I think it's good on my end. I mean, there is great value to share about that. So I guess we should focus on the topic. Evgeniy, I guess that's good for you as well.
Same here. Let's just jump in.
Super. All right. The first one I wrote down, guys, software supply chain. It was obviously on the list last year and probably the year before, if I remember correctly. We had big breaches the previous year with Move It and Go Anywhere, and then Go Anywhere was hacked again. The Move It stuff obviously sort of kept going on into 2024, and we still hear about it today. I read a report from a publication that forecast over $60 billion in this coming year is going to be breached as a result of the software supply chain. Alexandre, any thoughts there when you're working with clients? How often does software supply chain come up? You need to guide them to the fact that, hey, you guys aren't properly vetting all the software that you have in your environment. Here's a checklist of things you need to go through, or where are organizations typically at?
Well, that's falling under the third-party risk assessment. And it's challenging because they are very often blind to it. Because of the diversity of the different sources involved in the process. Either they're software publisher or they distribute things, and they see that from a self-liability issue, but they don't see how far it can be. So we have to remind them about the big event in the past, but also about the regular thing we see online. How many open source library got poisoned with either fake names or things like that lead to incident. So they have to do their famous SBOM, like software bill of material, know what they have in their stuff. And it's always falling back to the base of cybersecurity, like know what you have. And they don't think that when you say, you know what you have, like how many laptops, how many software, they don't think about what they have in the detail of the software, the libraries and stuff like that. So when you start to dig into that, it's so granular that it's really becoming a big challenge. So, and as we grow with digital transformation, it's getting a never big challenge by the day. So, yeah, definitely something to watch and something to work on.
Piggyback on Alexandre and what he's saying is that definitely the third-party management is very important. And two things happened, a couple of things happened. One, for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, the SaaS component became the major part versus on-prem. And it means that the companies in many cases need to put their data in somebody else's basket. And what we say with us, we will do updates of the software every day, every week. Don't worry about it. You'll get the latest material and the latest bugs and the latest vulnerabilities as soon as we can. So yes, we need to mature our third-party management, but we also need to open the eyes. How do we even create secure software by design? And if you reflect on our human life, by I mean like our day by day, did we pay attention what's on the can? Did we pay attention what's on this hand cream or whatever it is we have here around us? No, only for the last 15 years. Like, did you read this strange name that says there it's probably cancer? Or there's too much sugar, but it says no sugar? So the same here. We didn't pay attention. We didn't do secure healthy eating, secure development. So we open the eyes. And if you come to a general developer right now and tell them security, they'll tell, not my problem, somebody else's problem.
Yep, very true. Do you find organizations, the bigger ones anyway, or they have dedicated headcounts who in security who are responsible for vetting all these solutions that the darn marketing people or the sales people or the finance and so forth organizations are wanting to bring in?
In many big companies, there's dedicated departments and there's process. I don't think there could be one person that will be responsible for everything, but there should be a program, and there is a program. I have many friends in the industry that say this is the process, this is the severity of the by severity. I mean, is the data staying with us? Is the data going there? Do we check XYZ? What do we ask them? So I definitely see maturity and some process. Unfortunately, sometimes I see the questions in the process are just for the process. It's like, I need that, I need that. I'm like, did you ever read what I'm giving to you? I'll take this two sentences and create 15 policies out of it. And I ship it to the customer, and the customer will say, ooh, I use ChatGPT to convert these 15 policies to two sentences. So yes, we have a policy, but do we actually pay attention? Do we read what it says there? Do we validate you doing that? When it says we need to have a separate development and production environment, do we go and ask? Do we go and understand? And it's hard. Don't get me wrong. It's very, very hard because if the open source library change a code in 2 months, it's mean you may need to check them again in 2 months or have some kind of, Alexandre says, software bill of material management software that will able to dynamically, constantly analyze the SBOMs and tell, by the way, wait a second, they're just not using chicken anymore here. It's beef right now. It's maybe not kosher, even though the beef is kosher. So it's definitely long way from where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, you highlight 2 points. I mean, the top-down support in the organization is key. Otherwise, it has no teeth, like many regulation. And then the second point you highlight is the change management, because very often there is a decision that's made, a strategical decision and actions, but then they need to be followed and maintained, and that's not happening. So very often the program is aligned with the business strategy, but over time there is a big divergence between where the program is going and what's the reality of operation in organization. And if there is no stakeholder and no top-down support to enforce these things, and over time it becomes less and less efficient and even irrelevant at some point.
Do you think regulations, take SOC 2 or ISO or and so forth, organizations going through that process every year to get certified, or even more so on the federal sector like FedRAMP and so forth, is that going to help drive down some of the risks that we see happening in the software supply chain, where organizations that just don't have those will be automatically eliminated from consideration? What are your thoughts on that front?
Well, definitely it's helping. It's not doing it all because it's referred in the community as checkbox security, which is not the good thing, because if you just say yes, I was speaking about that with a friend. Like, you send that form and say, yeah, you have backup. Yes, we have it, but the question is not that. Is that done right? Are you maintaining it? Is it done the right way, in the way the regulation and the spirit of it has been brought? And the spirit of it, what's that? That's not something that you can measure. And so, but it means that you have to do it right. And you spoke about ISO in the ISO framework, and this is very clear that it has to be documented, maintained, and reviewed. So yes, if done right, it's going to help organization to maintain the right posture. But you do not have to be blind to the things out of scope, or anything that is happening in the organization. And the goal should not be to try to escape from the regulation, but more to have an overall security as a whole posture and take that as an opportunity to learn and enhance the process, looking toward what Evgeniy was bringing is security and privacy by default and by design. And that should be the goal. If we have that privacy and security check and every step of the change management process, first of all, we're going to keep a better posture, but we will have a way more easy compliance toward regulation and security framework, in my opinion.
Think about that by having compliance as framework, they guiding people where to go. As Alexandre says, being compliant, having a check, doesn't mean you're secure because I can always fabricate my answer. And let's be honest, if you pay someone money, doesn't matter if it's $10,000, $40,000, they now want to pass you. And you're like, dude, I just paid you so much money. Like, why are you giving me a hard time? Leave me alone. I'm not going to renew with you next year. I'm going to go with somebody else in different country. So now you have this game of the person that's doing the compliance for you want you to pass because they want the business next year. So they may cut some small corners. And there is unfortunately stories about strange SOC 2 compliances by companies that are not really supposed to be doing that. But definitely the compliance framework give you an idea. If I'm an engineer and I don't have time, why would I have production and production and pre-production environment? I just put everything in production. I'm lazy. It's faster, I can, but no, we know it's not the right way to do it. So this framework pushing you, and in this case, do you have a pre-production environment? Do you use it? Can everybody in the company push changes right into the production? It does definitely helping you to do the stuff. But if you don't have a security program that's focusing on program, then it doesn't matter the compliance. You will find how to be compliant. It doesn't mean you'll be secure.
Are there blind spots, when you're working and, vetting a solution from a SOC 2 or a ISO standpoint? Are there some blind spots that you should be looking for to ensure that you don't miss one of those risks?
Well, go ahead, Evgeniy.
There's definitely many one. I think we don't need to forget that ISO, it's more on the procedure part. SOC 2 is more about what you decide you're checking you against to. And one example that driving me nuts in SOC 2 is nobody cares about email security in SOC 2. Even so, it's a security control. It asks if you have an antivirus, it asks if you have an MFA, but there is no email security. There is something about data protection, but it's very, very vague there as well. So I do believe there are more. And honestly, if you take in security controls, I think NIST and CIS doing a better job on a controls perspective for a company in general.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I agree with that take on the practical side of things, but there is also the approach of why the organization wants to do and implement that specification, that framework, that compliance. What's the reason behind it? If it just sometimes it's just because a partner is requiring that to be able to be eligible to the contract, then they're gonna take the shortcuts. If the question is more build trust, be better at security, then they will do the work in a better way. So that's an interesting take because usually, the legislation has no teeth. If the goal is to match the requirement, there are going to be some short turns. If the goal is to develop a culture and establish trust and prove the value of it, most likely, from what we see in the field, it's going to be way better done, and it's going to be an opportunity to enhance. And I'm afraid we're going to see a lot of issues before it's get in the heads or in the decision process of doing right is the right way to do.
I want to add something here, and it's been something on my mind for a long time. And it's always when I'm talking to people about cybersecurity for the company, I always divide this. What are we trying to protect right now? Now we're talking about the corporate environment. So let's say we take Kite. Like you guys have a product, but you also have many people in the company. So you have a corporate security, email, endpoint, firewall, SASE, data protection. But then you have a product security, what goes to the customer. And it's not always the same controls. It's not always the same. So when we talk about compliance, there is a bit vague part there, what's in being protected and what's under the compliance part. Is just the product or the entire company? Because if we are not following zero trust, one person that completely not related to a product, maybe in marketing, may have been have an infection, and somehow it will make it way to a vulnerability in or a problem in a product itself.
Yeah, that's a good point. Very good point. Well, we got to cover more than one prediction in this podcast. We were talking beforehand CMMC 2 and all the upcoming uh, expectations that organizations have now that it's final. We have 60 days left to go, not even 60. The clock is ticking. What impact is that going to have specifically for the defense industrial base? Because there's 100,000 plus contractors in that space, small shops to large, huge global organizations. Obviously, global organizations have the wherewithal to address all the different controls in 2.0 level 2, but the smaller ones, it may be a bit of a challenge. What are you hearing in your conversations with your clients? Maybe start with Alexandre, and then Evgeniy will
Yep.
switch over to you.
Yeah. So that's a smaller side of the business we speak here on my end of Canada. But yet some provider. What happened is some of them had to rush to be eligible to the previous version of it, and with the self-assessment, etc. So sometimes they took some shortcuts. And now it's time to do it right. And for the ones that did actually implement the thing and the control, the gap between the requirements is way less to succeed. But for the ones that just did it just to pass it, there is a bigger gap. And I think we are going to see some transformation and big changes in this organization because they will have no choice where some process were acceptable and kind of with a band-aid. It will not be good enough, and they will have to rethink the way they handle the work that is under the scope of the CMMC. Because obviously, again, they can obviously segment where they work on that, and we're going to see a lot of that. Like the teams that work on the CMMC material are going to be probably moving into compliant platforms, and what was like patch and band-aid will be just dropped from the equation. That will be my take. Evgeny, maybe your take.
So first of all, we're definitely going to have many new companies that are going to help you to pass CMMC version 2. Okay, so if you're listening to us right now, please be careful before you're going with the companies that magically going to pass you this. Look on the third-party compliance. Understand how long they've been, what they did, and what they did before. Please don't trust anyone that's going to make you happen to you. Second, it's definitely a call for you to allocate budget to be compliant because you don't know right now how much money it will take. And as Alexandre mentioned, there is a self-assessment process that you definitely want to do. And if you cannot do it right now, you don't have to go all the way outside. You should go to the local IT, MSSP, people that help you to do your job. And if they're not able to help you with you doing the job, maybe it's time to think about somebody that will give you a better way for you to be secure if you don't understand what they're doing. Or they will find someone to help you because the worst part you can do is feeling this without understanding your environment and use it as a gift to assess your environment, to understand what you have. It's like, okay, it's not a course, it's a gift. I may find something I didn't know exists. I may find a printer, a CNC machine that connected to the internet that I didn't even know. Maybe a firewall with a management port connected to the internet, and many, many other different things. So there is changes. There is also alignment to NIST that I think it's good because it's mean we're going to the same direction as NIST and CMMC, and you can not kill two birds at the same time, but at least align these two initiatives. So if you started NIST or CIS, because you can map CIS to NIST, and you can even map SOC 2 to NIST in some cases, it's going to be shorter path for you for CMMC. So this is one part. So definitely start thinking about this. Don't wait to the last moment. There's policies need to be drafted. There's policies need to be changed. You need to understand who has access to what. A lot of stuff there are good ideas for self-review and self-reflection as you as a company.
One thing that you both have probably seen the same report where self-attestation, 80, 90% of organizations think they're okay, that they're going to pass. But in reality, when they're assessed, that's not the case. It's only like 15 or 20% are actually going to be able to pass based on where they're currently at with all the controls they have in place. So I think your point, Evgeniy, start now rather than waiting is really, really good advice. Alexandre, you have any thoughts on that front?
Yeah, definitely I agree, because they're going to realize the impact that is needed to bridge the gap, and the change that it's going to imply is also going to change the business workflow, because that's security on the side, but because to become compliant, there's so much change to do that the existing way of doing the work, the workflows, etc., the documentation will have to be adapted on the operational mode as well. So better sooner than later.
Yeah, I would completely agree on that front. Well, we could talk about regulations and compliance all day. That's like 10 podcasts in and of themselves. But here's another topic that's 10 podcasts in and of itself, AI. But specific, and we can talk about AI in terms of a risk that they're tapping into, and they're leveraging it to make their cyber criminals make their attacks more complex and to accelerate them. We could talk about how cybersecurity companies are tapping into AI to make their products more secure and to identify those attacks faster and to mitigate the risk. I would like to focus our discussion, which is the point that we made in the forecast, on sensitive data. And organizations are jumping into the pond. They're just not sticking their toe in the water. They're jumping headfirst into the water in many instances. And then they're discovering their employees are exposing sensitive data in these public LLMs. Do you see that as a risk? And are your clients talking about it? Do they realize that they actually have a risk on that front, or are they discovering after the fact?
I can start if you want. So
Sure.
there is, like, it was like bring your own device. And what happened is that a lot of time employees in organization jump on tools that are not validated or reviewed as part of the third-party risk assessment. So in EVD regulated spaces, they have training, they know they should not do it. But in most organizations, they think it's so convenient, like writing a letter, etc. And they use information that is sometimes classified or confidential and put it into the platform without assessing that this is going out. They think they are just using an application. And that's the culture of using a tool that looks like it's yours, but it's not. So basically, we fall back on the DLP, data leak prevention tool and side. And there are no, if there are no technical control or administrative control or policies regulating any of that, for sure, this is spreading information. And we know how big tech is eager to eat more data, build learning on it. And we saw many stories about, prompt injection stuff, allowing to get the data from other users around. So it's not about securing the AI itself, but it's just about know what you expose. And users are actually expanding the attack surface and breaching the governance. And when they do that, all the effort that you put into compliance, into governance of the information, you just kill it, because you just spread information that's out of sight, because there is no way for management, for compliance people, for the organization to say what was there, unless they did cover that before the use. Evgeniy, if you want to jump on that.
It's definitely a problem, but I think I want to expand this. It's not just the LLMs. It just in general, people like this problem existed for a long time, but just on a different scale. People put stuff on Facebook. People put stuff on YouTube. We kind of played with DLP. We know, no, it's not very easy. We play with URL filtering. We play with SSL decryption. There is ways to go around it. I think there's levels there. You need to bring awareness. You need to reminding people, not just police them, explain to them why it's bad. Because if I block ChatGPT and I forget that Alexandre will create an AB LLM tomorrow, or Patrick will has his own, yes, and apparently Amazon now has one as well because they put money in Perplexity. Okay, so maybe you go to Amazon, it now has an LLM as well. Actually, Amazon just now have it's their own recommendation tools as well. So it's more about awareness right now to explain to people. So let's start with explain why it's a bad idea. Do create policies. Do let people sign the policies why it's a bad idea. Because eventually, if somebody messed up something bad, you want to explain why they now need potentially can lose their job. remind from time to time, and I don't know why we stopped doing this. Alexandre, you probably remember the days of blue codes when you open the browser and this is telling you, by the way, don't forget you're browsing right now. Please don't do anything stupid. So we had a pop-up window telling us that we're kind of watching you and please be careful in what you're doing. We have this entire domain of security browsers that can do many stuff as well. So I'm not saying we shouldn't block, we should, but there should be also a lot of awareness. And there, it's just going to be very hard to plug all the holes we see. And we should attempt to do it, but we also need to spend time to educate people that they want to think why it's a bad idea. And if they need LLM, and I think we do need LLMs, and it's their opportunity to go to management and say, "Hey, I'm a developer. Can I have an LLM specific on developers?" I think something called Cursor or something like that. There's like many LLMs that people build right now purposely that you want to go to management. Third party risk company will assess the LLMs, make sure they're good, and you will get the LLM for you that you can safely use inside the company.
And
Yeah.
I want to add, Evgeniy, I spoke to organization as well that did decide to deploy LLM inside with local workloads of LLMs. But that, yeah, did solve the third-party risk of the data going to a third-party provider, but that didn't fix the governance issue within the organization. If engineering data or research data go to the marketing side and vice versa, which is not supposed to happen, this is the same challenge. And sometimes it doesn't fix. Although I'm not, I'm not a cloud lover, but we have to admit that if things are deployed internally, they must be done right as well. And sometimes it can bring some tough challenges, especially in the AI world where either generative or LLM or any kind of automatic processing, the data flow has to be cleared before anything is deployed in production. And that can require a lot of effort, especially that technical solutions are not all available yet, I think.
That's actually a great segue to. I'll cover one more prediction, and we'll wrap things up. Everyone will have to go read the report themselves. But one more thing that I had written down that I think is interesting, and that sort of is a perfect segue, is data classification. You have all this unstructured data all over the place. You don't know where it's all stored. Plus, you don't know what it is. You know, what do you see from a 2025 prediction standpoint that organizations will begin to do when dealing
You
with
know
that?
what? I think this is what we've been complaining about AI, but I think this is where AI should shine. And if it doesn't shine, it should go away home because this is what it's designed
Yeah.
to. Understand that this is a picture of my dog and not my T4 or not my compliance and my other tax documents. I don't want tools that tell me that cost $100,000 and I need to explain to the tool what they need to look for. This is why I want the tool that goes smartly analyze the data. Is ChatGPT can analyze a picture and tell me where to I can or cannot park, or tell me it's a traffic ticket, or tell me something else. That all these tools should, and some of them already, able to discover, scan the data across my cloud, across my devices, across my SharePoint, my SaaS, and give me an accurate place on an explanation. Hey, Evgeny, this data shouldn't be actually in the company. This is all private data. Let's tag it and remove it. And we don't even need to classify this data. I think it shouldn't be gone. Okay. And then let's classify the data. And unfortunately, we know, and this is where you guys, I think, shine and helping the industry is let's not just classify the data. Let's also encrypt and protect the data. Because
Yeah.
if I have this amazing SOW PowerPoint, it shouldn't be going to everywhere. And as somebody that worked for a very big MSSP VAR for a long time, this was very annoying to present to a customer and then seeing how my salespeople so easily sending the PowerPoint that we spent 2 months building, and then 6 months after, or even 2 months after, somehow somebody telling you about a competitor that have the same pitch as you. I was like, I wonder how this happened.
Yeah, I think this is also defining a nice evolution of AI, which has been very generic right now to reach the market and the time to market stuff. But where it really shine is in specified application, properly scoped application, and data classification is definitely one of them. And on top of that, because the model can be trained and deployed, it means that it doesn't have to ingest ton of other data from the third party. Because right now, all the large stuff that you spoke about, ChatGPT, it's eating the data that people feed in to grow and learn. But when we have defined scope application and the engine is working well, then you can have a lot of benefit from it without raising the risk level. It's the same when we see, it's amazing at scanning radio X-rays to find cancer and stuff like that. It's doing great at that. And it doesn't mean that it's going to mine all the data and pull it all. So that side of it, I think it's going to be where it performs, and it will be able to have like focus application, properly scope. It's going to also make governance and security way more easy because we know what it's supposed to do and we can actually restrict it to what it's supposed to do. So in the future, that's, I guess, the evolution for business to have dedicated AI work. It's going to make life easy for many, many people and for the regulation and security people as well.
Yeah, I agree. Classify it, track it, control it, secure it. that's the task before us today, right? Well, We're unfortunately out of time, guys. There's a bunch of other predictions, as we know, in that report. Encourage your audience to pick up a copy. You can do so at kiteworks.com/forecast/report. Pretty easy to remember. So make sure to check it out on our website. Alexandre, for those in our audience who are interested in engaging with you, LinkedIn obviously is a good starting point. Any other suggestions for them?
Oh, LinkedIn is just fine. Reach out. Always happy to discuss and broad technology spectrum. Just sometime opening the discussion. You don't know where your strategy is going. I'm not selling products, so that's something that I don't do. I don't sell product, so I just bring analysis. I can guide you, help understand. That's what I do. Basically, board advisory kind of stuff as well. And yeah, that's what I do on LinkedIn.
That was great.
To reach out.
Evgeniy, audience, they need to pick up a copy of your book. They can engage with you on LinkedIn. Any other suggestions for them?
LinkedIn, softskillstack.ca, the website. Definitely spending a lot of time on LinkedIn. Always happy to connect. Always happy to help you if you have questions how to get to cyber. Actually, just a bit of small promotion. We just created a small training for people that want to have interviews, how to use soft skills, how to be on camera, how to relax, have a calm voice, not using filler words, because I believe the younger, and not just younger generation, is definitely missing this part, and we want people to get hired, we want people to get a job.
That's great. And the snowboarding conference is coming up a few months away.
Yes, February 27. Everybody is welcome.
Well, guys, thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate your time and your insights and your ongoing support. For audience members, go to kiteworks.com/kitecast to check out other episodes. Happy holidays, guys.
Thank you, you too.